Now, Palestine were involved in the Asian Sevens rugby tournament recently in Oman. They're coached by Droghed's Kevin McCleery, who's with me at the moment. He still very proudly says a current Boyne player and player coach as well. We'll get to that in a little bit, but coach a Palestine Sevens team at the same time.
Yes. How that came about, I feel like I'd like to think I can nail this story nice and sharply, because all week long in Muscat, Oman at the Asia Sevens competition, are you the Irish guy? I am, yeah. And you're coaching Palestine? I am, yeah.
How did that come about?
How did that come about? Exactly. So, well, about 3 months ago, August, I hit a point of wanting to do something to help in some way, shape, or form. It was just months and months of seeing distressing images and unsure, do I just maybe find somewhere to donate to, or can I give my time in any way? And I had a little look around and found out that there was a Palestine Rugby committee. You get an email off the back of that, and I reached out, and the president of the Palestine Rugby Committee, Rabi El Masri, got back to me. We had a call. He had mentioned that they're invited to an Asia Sevens competition in Muscat, Oman at the end of October. So I said, great, I'll give you a hand to prepare the team for that. You just use me how you feel. Do you need maybe some form of individual training plans? I had no idea where these players were coming from, how he was gathering them, but I just said, yeah, use me as you please. Bearing in mind, and I kept this to myself, that my background is entirely within Union and 15, so while he was asking questions about sevens, I was like, yeah, good
Transferable
question.
skills, no problem.
Good question. I'll get back to you on that one. And then I have the screen open to me on one side. So oddly enough, that's been a very good personal development for me as well, from a rugby and a coaching point of view. And the weeks and chats and calls went back and forth, and I was more or less on the verge in September, kind of saying best of luck in October and in Muscat, and he said, we're still in need of a coach, would you be interested? And it worked out that the Boyne RFC had an off weekend that weekend, and I said I'd absolutely love to. So I got back this morning. I was there a week, so I flew out last Monday, arrived Tuesday, and spent the week with the team, and had one hell of an experience. Yeah,
it's not much time to get a team ready for a tournament. When you meet them, a few days before you're ready to play your first game, and by your own admission, not with a sevens background yourself.
Yeah, and look, again, there's probably a strange kind of selfish element to it, that off the back of it, as I had a chance to reflect on flight home and stuff yesterday, I just got a full week experience as an international coach in a camp week. So from Tuesday, how do you go about implementing something? First step was, okay, these guys, I need to gel them together as a group. Second step is, how can we make the most of our time to develop a few of the basic skills of the game? And then thirdly, implement a bit of a game plan that is achievable. So we trained twice a day. We had access to a nearby beach, maybe a 25-minute walk, which turned my forehead quite salmon-coloured by the afternoon each day as I was taking that walk. The rest of them, not a bother on them. But we trained on the beach in the morning and had access to a pitch in the evening. Trained twice a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Had a fairly deload day on the Friday and got stuck into it Saturday or Sunday. But the first couple of days, it was like a mixture between Saipan and Cool Runnings, maybe, because the Saipan element was, and I had to be very, completely aware of the environment in which I was in. And we done a walkthrough in the hotel day one, and we used a cushion as the ball because there was no access to a ball just yet. And then that evening it was our first pitch session, and it had been double booked. The Oman under-18s football team were on the pitch, so we were squeezed into a small little corner, and we were just adapting on the fly. And yeah, we managed.
Without wanting to romanticize this too much, I presume part of this, while the players would want to be competitive, any tournament you want to go to, you want to be competitive, but I presume representing Palestine and actually getting out to this was probably more important than what you achieved or didn't achieve on the pitch last weekend.
Yeah, very much so. These boys were incredibly proud to all stand together under the Palestinian flag, wear the Palestinian jersey all weekend long. And before we started, it was mentioned that like an objective for the weekend was to score a try. That was maybe the expectation levels, and we had such a good week of prep. Um, they had previously been involved in a Asia Sevens competition in 2021 and got unfortunately heavily beaten in a lot of them games, kind of up to 60, 70 nil. So much so that they came across a bit online at the time, nearly mocking the performance that Palestine Sevens are attempting to play rugby. Look at them, they can't look at the drumming that they're getting. So Rabi, who I previously mentioned, in his attempts to get them to another tournament in the years that followed, was met with a bit of opposition by the Palestine Olympic Committee because they felt we're just not ready for this. But he pushed and pushed for this one, and we prepared the team as best we could. I had learned a sentence of Arabic just before the first game because all week long I had two or three of the players that did have an understanding of English, and every time I spoke they would translate, and then when they were speaking I had one of the guys' phones and that translated everything that was being spoken in Arabic. But I felt it was my duty to make my attempt of it, and my sentence was, guys, I'm incredibly proud of you, and regardless of the results this weekend, we've already won. Then the ball kicked off in the first game, and in my head I'm thinking, scrap that. I'm after this here. Yeah, we kicked off, they caught, and we conceded a try maybe first 15 seconds, and said, yeah, we'll have a bit of difficulty this weekend. But we had 6 games, two on the Saturday, 4 on the Sunday. As I mentioned, one of the aims was to score a try, and game 1, 29-0, tough to take, pick the boys up. Next one, 22-7. So our first try
off the mark
already achieved, and I was explaining to them that if all our aim is from game to game to just get a little bit better, from 29 points conceded to a difference of 15 in one match, we've made a 50% improvement. So that was the kind of message that I had tried to keep. Sunday morning, first game, beaten 12-7. Closer again. We then had a bit of a drumming, unfortunately. 41-0 against Lebanon. They were a good side.
Who I was going to assume, because maybe the Michael Cheika connection to all this, that Lebanon are probably quite a bit ahead of the other teams in the region.
Yes, yeah. Now, still a couple of other strong sides. Lebanon were probably around the middle of the levels. A couple of levels above would have been India, very, very strong, and Kazakhstan were the overall winners of it. And dotted around the stadium, each team had their tents, and that's why I kind of say that the cool runnings to what we were operating off versus the other teams had a coaching ticket, and they had a massage table in between the games, and the grip tech spray for the hands because of the humidity and whatnot. And we didn't quite have our cushion ball. We had fully functioning rugby balls by the weekend, but Lebanon were strong enough. They gave us a tough 41-0 defeat. Again, you're looking for the smallest windows of optimism on the result, and I was showing the boys, if you remember the Rio final, the Olympics 2016, Fiji beat Great Britain 43-7. Most masterclass performance in sevens I can ever remember. And I was saying to them that at the absolute pinnacle of elite sevens rugby, gold medal in the Olympics, a team managed to concede 43 points and we've conceded 41 there. So it's not a crazy thing to have happened. And there was a chance to mention a defeat for the Brits, so I got it in it any way I could. Last 2 games, were beaten 19-12, although there was no bonus points in the competition. This was technically our 3rd one. And then the final one, I think it was 12-7 or 1912. It was within a score again. So
You get 4 games basically within touching distance.
yes, yeah, we felt we were very competitive, and against Iraq, which was the 1912 game, I think, when they received the ball and the hooter had gone in the stadium, they got it off the park as quickly as they could, and we were thinking, well,
They were
you know, yeah, they ended the game when they could, versus we could score here if we wanted to. So I could have told that in another version, that 6 games, 6 losses, but there was certainly a deeper story to it all, yeah.
Yeah. What's the rugby scene like in Palestine? Because when I first reading about your story last week, I kind of thought, right, how much of a pick is he going to have from when he goes across here? Because you have to take naturally everything that's happened there in the background at the same time. So, Gaza has been effectively reduced to rubble. You're probably looking at players in the West Bank that you're able to pick from here. So, what was the, I guess, selection? How were you able to actually find a team to put together for this?
Exactly correct. With regards to the players that did come directly from Palestine, were from the West Bank region. Those in Gaza, unfortunately, completely inaccessible. So Rabi Al Masri, the president, he spends a bit of time in the region trying to get little pockets of sports players that might be interested in playing a bit of rugby. Side tangent that just comes into my head. One of the guys had a bit of interest in American football, more from a watching point of view, but he scored one of the tries on day 2, and he crossed the try line and he holds the ball up above his head, and we are just expecting this fella to slam it down. Time stood still, but he placed it, thankfully. So them 5 guys of our squad of 12 came directly from the West Bank region. They all 12 players would have been completely gathered together from this president. My only role was to turn up and coach the side.
All fairly new to the game as well?
Yes, yeah. The 7 who were outside Palestine would come from either their parents in previous decades would have left or been forced to flee, or maybe a grandparent. So 2 were based in Lebanon, 1 was in Qatar, 2 were in Europe, and 1 was in Dubai. The guys outside of Palestine had a little bit more experience. They were maybe played a bit at university level, or in a club. So that was the makeup of the 12 lads.
Quite the challenge, isn't it? Like, you're going in then to guys who are so new to this game, some guys who've got a bit of experience, and then on top of that, you just take like the logistical issues of getting players to get to Oman from the situation that they're in right now as well. Because I remember we talked to some boxers last year, and they had to basically go under the cover of night to get out of the West Bank to be able to get to Turkey, to be able to make it to their tournament. So was it tricky for them to actually travel to Oman as well?
Yes, the 5 guys within the West Bank faced a bit of difficulty getting visas approved. I think they had to begin that process, months in advance to get them approval. And then the route was a bus out of the region they mentioned was Nablus within the West Bank. They'd get a bus from there east out of the country into Jordan, and then flew Jordan to Abu Dhabi to Muscat.
Yeah.
But that was the route in which they told me, but I'm unsure as to, is that, what was the bus set up? Was it nobody knows we're getting this, or is it in the middle of the night? I'm not sure, but I do know, logistics to get to Muscat were far from straightforward.
Yeah, like, it sounds like quite the challenge, because there'll be those who may be listening to us or watching us at the moment who go, oh, well, if the situation is so bleak in Palestine with the ongoing conflict, how can these guys actually get out and play an international tournament? The answer you've just given me is not easily.
Correct, yes. And I was really keen to make sure I had kind of consistently mentioned, even to friends, family, acquaintances back home, that those who were coming directly from Palestine were not from the Gaza region, in case there was a misrepresentation that, I thought they were in a absolutely inhumane, genocidal environment. How can they just fly off and play a rugby competition? That wasn't the case. Unfortunately, those in Gaza are in a bleak area, reduced to rubble environment. 2 of the 5, though, that were in the West Bank region, they're in a refugee camp within their own country. So yeah, far from easy for them to get over there as well.
Yeah.
But when we gathered on the Tuesday, and I'm making all my introductions and hellos, there's quite a number of them that are meeting each other for the first time. But it's incredible how quick, because of their passion for representing Palestine, the unity amongst the group straight away is, we have a why here. There's no individual agendas. We know what we're representing. Very, very coachable. Anything at all that was mentioned, they took it on board. So that reduced the time in which something had to be kind of explained or implemented. And yeah, it helped things a little bit.
Just to bring you back to your why again. So you had said you kind of spent months, I guess, digesting the news, probably watching what's happening there. How long had you been thinking about getting involved in Palestine in some way?
Look, I know this conflict is 70 years plus old, but only in maybe the last couple of years has caught my attention, is probably the wrong way to phrase it, but I'm more aware of it. I'm more aware of the situation. I deliberately made sure I kept exposing myself to images and pretty horrific footage of taking place, because I think ignoring it was certainly the wrong thing to do. And it was a phrase that I heard quite regularly around being on the right side of history, that, look, if you can make any small little effort to contribute to this in some way, as the years go by and we get older and the younger generation ask, when this was taking place, what did you do? Doesn't matter how small your contribution, you can make a difference, be the change you want to see, type of thing. So it was probably, look, a year of really seeing this, wondering what could I do. And then, yeah, it was at some point during the summer where I thought, look, rugby tends to be, if I am to try and contribute to some sort of environment, that's where my skill set lies. Let's see, is there anything in that? I probably thought, Will, that I could send over, my club and Boyne could send over jerseys or send over equipment, or that's where the genesis of it was, that, fundraise for them. Or I was even thinking at a home game where we collect the entrance fees for people going to watch the game. You could do one weekend of the money going towards them, but no, I settled on, I found that there is some sort of association. Let's see, can I give some time towards it?
Does this association go on beyond the Sevens tournament, or what's the plan?
So, do you remember I mentioned 2021, the Qatar 2021 Asia competition that they were in, and they got a few heavy defeats. Rabi's ability to try and explain that to the Palestine Olympic Committee was a challenge, and he says this time round, although there is an almighty improvement, they will read it as 6 games, 6 defeats, and should they still be supported. So there's one more competition coming up in April in Morocco, which would be a tier below Asia Sevens, called the Arab Sevens. They would love to go to that. For so many reasons, there's an uncertainty whether they could attend, whether that's, do they get the support, do they have the access to the players again, do they have the budget? There was a GoFundMe that got them to this competition. Can they do it again? But please God, I'll be coaching them in Morocco in April, all going well. Yeah,
because this is keep going. If the Olympic Federation decide that there's not return on investment on sending them to that tournament, then very quickly this can wither on the vine and die, because then the players never meet up again. It's a different type of situation maybe to some other countries, whereby there's an existing set of players and a program can be revived. You're literally trying to kickstart a program here.
Yes, yeah, and Rabi's ultimate aim would be to have somebody on the ground, your typical rugby development officer, that he does an incredible job at bringing the whole thing together from beneath, pooling the players together, arranging jerseys, equipment, fundraising, but he does a huge amount of managing up as well, trying to get full membership with World Rugby, conversations back and forth with Asia Rugby all the time about how they maybe could support them. But while he's doing all that, he could really do with an employed rugby officer on the ground over there. So
I don't know if you're trying to put yourself forward for this because you do have a background in this here, which is, of course, a very different environment to working over there. But is that something that could potentially interest you to get involved in that way?
it was our last conversation in the hotel yesterday before we parted ways. Where I left it was, okay, leave it with me. And what I would potentially love to go about organising is, instead of looking for somebody to commit to a permanent position over there, that within maybe the IRFU or the 4 provinces, a relationship could be arranged that at blocks over the year, 1 or 2 could go out, deliver some coaching courses, deliver some sessions, be available to be contactable in the times in between. And then if you got that up and running, either one of them, people delivering that development, would say, do you know what, I'd love to be out here a little bit more permanently, or after a series of the development that takes place, you upskill someone there enough that they can then do the role. And that's probably the better
use of your skills.
Use your skills and an outcome from me to organise that. But also, if they can have a local per se doing it, I always find it's a better way to grow the game straight away.
Well, it also means if you were to come from the outside and you were to leave, then what you do could fall away. Well, if it's somebody who's on the ground and local, as you say, if they're upskilled, naturally they're actually there. And if, say, you decide to step away after a year, they can hand over to someone else within Palestine.
Precisely, exactly, yeah.
Because for those who might be familiar with your background, you've worked for Leinster Rugby as a development officer as well.
I did, yeah. 7 years. With Leinster, finished up with them in April. I was originally a club and community rugby officer in charge of just developing club rugby out of one club, and then
you like going to areas that are developing rugby, so it seems.
I just get put there. My most recent role, I've done about 3 years in the northwest region at Dublin City Centre. My main kind of area was within Finglas, Ballymun, Poppintree, Cabra. Traditionally not a huge amount of rugby played there.
Association football and Gaelic games kind of areas, really.
Yes. And if you were to take from, let's say, Kilmine towards the M50 all the way to Clontarf, that entire region in between, there's no club. So naturally, when there's no club, even if you do develop rugby within the region, very first question is, who do I join? If there's not somewhere straight away, then it becomes more difficult. I will add that at an adult level, the Ballymun Finglas Ravens do operate, and when I was doing some of my work and projects within that area, they did get involved and said if we could be of any help, we'd love these players to come into us. So they're certainly trying their best too.
Is that area ripe for rugby development? I mean, right now Leinster are playing a bit of the rugby in Dublin 3, and there has been a big push by, I think, Leinster Rugby to try and get out to areas where traditionally they wouldn't have been seen as their part of Dublin particularly. Is there possibly in the future, in those areas you just described, and you've described like a really heavily populated, wide part of Dublin there, for rugby maybe to flourish in the future?
Without a doubt, yeah. Like it's a sport at the end of the day, and sports for all. So you just want the strength of the game is if it is represented across all 4 corners of the island, you ultimately, the wider the foundation, the higher the peak. So if you can tap into as many different areas as possible, regardless of the location in which these boys or girls come from, they're talented sports people, but it's maybe just the access that they need a little bit more of. I had noticed in the last few years within the area that like the Leinster Rugby brand was growing. You know, typically you see nothing but United and Liverpool jerseys everywhere, but all of a sudden you were spotting a Leinster beanie or a Leinster zippy, or the kit suppliers would be delighted with that one. But in general, it was a presence within the area, and as I started to visit more and more schools on a Monday morning, say, they could reference the Six Nations game that Saturday. What do you think of Ireland? How good were Ireland? Wow. a win away from home. Do you think they'll win next week? All that, and that was just slow. Signs that the game is growing. It takes time. I know when I left the position, Leinster Rugby had someone straight in immediately, and they're continuing to do the work there too.
You've been studying away, and I'm not going to say it's the Carlow branch of Oldford IT because it's not called that anymore. It's SETU Southeast, is it? I think.
Correct. Yes.
The TU Southeast. So, what are you studying there at the moment?
Yes, Southeast Technological University. I started in September to do a sports performance analysis course. So when I finished up with Leinster in April, I during the summer got appointed from a player coach in Boyne to a head coach position. They can't get rid of me, but I'm still here, and I really enjoy coaching. I'm ambitious to do well in it, and I was just looking for ways that I could upskill even further. And the analysis side of the game is probably the area that I've often kind of neglected a little bit because my skill set was poor in it, and I often don't like having the head in the laptop too often. But I said if I was...
How deep is the analysis at AIL level then?
AIL level, a lot of these clubs would have a third party doing their video analysis for them. So some internally, some employed coaches solely doing the analysis. Some the coach, forwards coach, backs coach, head coach would have the skill set anyway, but
because for so long that would have seemed like only the provinces would have access to that type of detail and that type of information, but it's now available further down the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in recent years the tool it is for your coaching is unbelievable, because it's like video analysis, it's what actually happened versus what you think happened, so you have your view after a game of we did well in this, not so good in this, he did great, he didn't do so great, where can we get better, versus let me just watch the game back, and you either reaffirm what you thought or you reaffirm that you know nothing. But it's a very, very powerful tool. I think the more ways you can help a team and individual players, from a training point of view, you can get out on the pitch, nothing replaces that, but if you can also use footage, feedback, helps a lot, So we're in Boyne, one tier below AIL in the Leinster League, but all the teams across
you're still applying to the Leinster League
would do that, Everyone would video their games, everyone would look back at footage, everyone is in a rat race to get everyone else's footage, and the texts fly around immediately after a game on a Saturday. Once a team knows you've played that certain team, well, can I get a hold of that? So it's a powerful tool. So I started the Masters in September. It'll run for the year, providing I do okay in it, and I'm just seeing it as another string to the bow, basically.
Right, you trying to get from Leinster League now to AIL is the step you're hoping for in Boyne.
Boyne, where it's the Champions Cup, where after that's the 20-year goal. We'll win it one day,
Well, I was just going to say, is the upturn results, because you guys are going well so far this season in the Leinster League, is this your transition into head coach and keeping you off the field, or what's the reason they're doing so well?
I think we're doing well because I'm not playing.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably it. We're doing well because it's a cracking group of people. Lads very bought into things. The biggest gathering of oddballs you could ever come across, but together they represent Boyne very well. And we've 3 adult teams, a thriving minis, youths, and a growing girls section. Plans to have some teams represented in the inclusion space as well. And it's a cracking club full of good people.
Yeah, it's great they've solid foundations, because sometimes you get a team who do well, they'll win a Towns Cup, maybe win the Leinster, go to AIL, the next thing it was difficult to fund it, and it's only really one team at the top of the club. But if you've everything feeding up a pyramid, you've got a chance of the club actually being successful longer term.
Yeah, very much so. Like, a success, if it isn't sustainable, it ultimately isn't success. Like a flash in the pan victory, if it's not followed up by a long-term planning, it kind of wasn't really worth it in the first place. So excuse me, we just build, it sounds kind of quite cliche, but it's a week at a time. It's training tonight. Can we be better than we were last week? And that's the only way you can judge your progress. And it's a very Drogheda local player group. We've avoided getting a huge amount of external players in for a short-term gain or covering a crack. Yeah, so we've been building it a long time, and there is no end goal. It's just keep doing good things and keep doing them a little bit better.
For you, I mean, it's your home club. Do you see yourself tied to home? Because you had a spell, I think it was when you were like down the Southern Hemisphere for a while. It was like Australia, New Zealand. You went to Canada for a little while as well. Are those travels kind of gone out of you now, or can you see yourself going abroad again, aside from coaching the Palestine Sevens?
Who knows? Post my first stint down in what was Carlow IT at the time, I hadn't a breeze what I was going to be doing, so that led to a bit of travelling and lived in London for a year, Toronto for a year. Myself and one of the Boyne players went down to Auckland for a season and played rugby there.
Was that a rugby offer, or were you thinking of going to Auckland anyway?
Our coach in Boyne at the time, he's now coaching the Auckland Blues, Craig McGrath.
All right.
He was our coach at the time. We had got Waitemata was the club side he's associated with. He's a Centurion there, him and his brother. There's only about maybe half a dozen of them on the wall, but he's a proud club man down there too. Says he still tips away at going to games on the weekend, but he had arranged a hooker to come up to us to play a season, and in exchange, when our season was done, two of us went down.
You must have been a good hooker to get two players from.
Well, it was one Boyne player and me tagging along,
Right.
maybe, but yeah, the hooker he was a cracking player, yeah. And in terms of travel and whatnot, who knows? Home is home for now. All eyes on Boyne and finishing the Masters, and we go from there. Yeah.
Well, great opportunity that rugby gives you to see the other side of the world.
Without a doubt, and from that Asia Sevens competition this weekend, I couldn't believe some of the nations, male and female, competing in it and seeing the standard from it. Kazakhstan incredibly strong. Uzbekistan won the female competition. Unbelievably well drilled, skill set, catch pass, fit sides. Iraq, Lebanon, Afghanistan. Yeah, global game. They've done a good job in growing it. You'll see in 2027, I think, is it up to 32 teams maybe, the next World Cup? So it's going in the right direction, yeah.
And is there a possibility if they run really specific sevens programs that they could get really good at this? Because I think trying to catch the teams in rugby union test is like almost impossible, and there's so many barriers that you have to smash through. But you see nations that aren't traditionally strong in 15s that can be quite good at sevens.
Yeah, and I think it still can be a vehicle for the 15s, providing in some circumstances that the 15s isn't already very well established. You know, if the 15s isn't all very well established, then what an entry to the game. I know in the Southern Hemisphere, in South America, Uruguay and Chile, who've been in the recent World Cup, the basis of their game started in sevens. They do very well on the circuit. It produces a good level of player. I was trying to think after the competition on the weekend, I don't know if there's another sport that has that big of a playing field with so few players on it. Correct me if you can think of one, but that alone exposes the skill set so much. Being able to pass certain distances, being able to catch and tackle somebody in one-on-one, that if you use that game to develop the players, they'll only naturally be a good fit for 15s, yeah.
Final one for you before you finish up, and I know this goes way beyond it, but you're now an international sevens coach, so why not ask you, is it an awful shame that the Irish sevens programme has just been shelved? Because I know some of the guys who were on it, and like it was just kind of desperately disappointing for them to get such short notice that they had a feeling maybe the next Olympics mightn't happen, but it was almost like, sorry lads, end of the year, we're gone. We're probably not even going to play a tournament this summer, and some of them were getting calls on golf courses to find out that their contracts weren't going to be renewed and whatever else. To me, when you look at some of the players that have come through it, I even think of like Cormac Isichukwu at the moment. I think of Hugo Keenan, where the sevens program being revived about 10 years ago actually bore fruit from that point of view. It does not seem an awful shame that Ireland are kind of kicking men's sevens into the curb now for the moment.
Look, it is a shame to see any program finish across any sport, any gender. If a program is started, you would like to think it started off the basis of here is where we're at now, and the long-term goal is just to get better and better and better. But for something to end, is always a shame. You would like to think that in some way, whatever the planning is as a result of it going, time, resources, money is invested in other areas, and the game still thrives here. But it's a sensitive one, so I've played that with a straight bat. It's above my pay grade how the sevens program is handled, unfortunately.
You truly have played that very cleverly indeed. Kevin, it's been a pleasure to meet you. Best of luck with
Likewise.
Boyne. If my own local club Tullamore don't go back up, I'll be happy if you guys go up to the AL for next season. So good luck with the second half of the campaign. And hopefully we'll be chatting again about the fact that you get to go out with Palestine again in the new year to play in that Arab tournament as well.
Yeah, please God, lovely chatting to you. And final mention is just, I know you guys have, as part of the agreement of me coming in to chat, have made a donation towards the team's fund, which means a lot, so fair play to you.
No problem, our pleasure. Thanks, William.
Cheers.